India and the European Union seal a historic free trade agreement dubbed as the mother of all trade deals. From luxury cars to wines, a whole slew of products are set to get cheaper. As the world watches closely, India and the EU take their ties to the next level. On a day they sealed a landmark trade deal, India and the European Union also signed a new security and defence partnership that could prove to be a game changer. This comes at a time when Europe is looking to reduce its dependence on the US and China. As India and the European Union deepen their economic and strategic ties, is the United States rattled? Referring to the Ukraine war and India's purchase of Russian oil, US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent blasts Europe, accusing it of financing a war against itself. NATO chief Mark Rutte drops a cold warning in Europe's lap, says the continent is dreaming if it thinks it can defend itself without help from the United States. Trump raises tariffs on South Korea from 15% to 25%. He accuses Seoul of not living up to the trade deal reached last year. Chaos rocks at Karnataka Assembly as the BJP alleges a 6,000 crore rupee excise scam and demands a CBI probe. UGC's new equity rules face a Supreme Court challenge amid nationwide protests. Critics warn of chaos and misuse. The UGC says it's vital to end caste discrimination. More bad news for actor politician Vijay. The Madras High Court stalls the release of his film Jana Nayagan, setting aside an earlier clearance over procedural flaws. Hello and welcome to the Times of India. You're watching Headlines at 8 with me, Neha Khanna. Our big story on the show tonight. We did it. We delivered the mother of all trade deals. It's a tale of two giants. That's what a triumphant European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said today at the India-EU summit, as India and the European Union announced a historic free trade agreement, one that is being viewed as one of the most consequential trade deals the world has seen in recent times. The agreement is a culmination of close to 2 decades of painstaking and often tough negotiations between two of the world's largest democratic markets. After the signing ceremony in New Delhi, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said, two of the world's biggest democratic trading blocs, with trade valued at $213 billion, have sealed the biggest free trade agreement in our history. We've taken a lot of decisions that will help people. The India-EU trade deal is a blueprint for mutual growth and for the global good, he said. EU chief Ursula von der Leyen said, India has risen and Europe is truly glad about it. When India succeeds, the world is more secure and we all benefit. European Council President Antonio Costa said, India and the EU stand together as strategic and reliable partners, and we're taking our partnership to the next level to shape a resilient global order that enables peace and stability. India is the fastest growing economy and today's FTA is of historic importance. Costa, who also holds an overseas Citizen of India card, said he's proud of his Indian roots and that the India-EU trade deal reflects the shared vision of India and Europe. So why is the India-EU trade deal so hugely significant? Coming after nearly 2 decades of negotiations and having surmounted many hurdles, the agreement creates a common market of 2 billion people and would account for 25% of the global GDP. The deal is expected to deepen ties between the two sides in multiple sectors. It will likely lower tariffs on most consumer and industrial goods traded between India and the European Union, though it might exclude some agricultural products. The deal would now mean slashing of tariffs for cars from the European Union from 110% to 40% and eventually to just 10%, and easing of norms for steel and textile exports. Brussels says this single move could reset India's premium car market. In addition, sweeping cuts across machinery, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, aircraft and medical equipment promise to flood the market with cheaper and high-end European goods. Over 90% of EU exports to India will see duties eliminated or sharply reduced, with Europe expecting exports to double by 2032. From wines, spirits and olive oil to financial and maritime services, Europe gains unprecedented access, backed by a €500 million climate push. Bilateral trade is expected to jump to over $40 billion over a 5-year period. The landmark deal comes at a time when Europe is looking to reduce its dependence on the US and China and deepen its economic ties with other regions. US President Donald Trump's tariff wars and economic protectionism have unleashed enormous turbulence, and many are now viewing American unilateralism and aggression as a rupture in the rules-based global order. In this backdrop, the India-EU Free Trade Agreement sends out an important message that Europe views India not only as a major trading partner but also as an important strategic partner and keystone in its Indo-Pacific and global strategy. Needless to say, Washington is closely watching.
Friends, आज भारत ने अपने इतिहास का अब तक का सबसे बड़ा फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट संपन्न किया है। आज 27 तारीख है। ये सुखद संयोग है कि आज ही के दिन यूरोपियन यूनियन के 27 देशों के साथ भारत ये एफटीए कर रहा है। यह एक ऐतिहासिक समझौता हमारे किसानों, हमारे छोटे उद्योगों, इसके यूरोपियन मार्केट तक पहुंच आसान बनाएगा, मैन्युफैक्चरिंग में नए अवसर पैदा करेगा और हमारे सर्विसेज सेक्टर के बीच सहयोग को और प्रबल करेगा। इतना ही नहीं, यह एफटीए भारत और यूरोपियन यूनियन के बीच इन्वेस्टमेंट को बूस्ट करेगा, नई इनोवेशन पार्टनरशिप बनाएगा और वैश्विक स्तर पर सप्लाई चेन को मजबूत करेगा। यानी यह सिर्फ ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट नहीं है, यह साझा समृद्धि का नया ब्लूप्रिंट है। फ्रेंड्स, आज की इन उपलब्धियों के आधार पर हम अगले 5 वर्ष के लिए एक और भी एम्बिशियस और होलिस्टिक स्ट्रेटेजिक एजेंडा लॉन्च कर रहे हैं। एक जटिल वैश्विक वातावरण में यह एजेंडा स्पष्ट दिशा देगा, हमारी साझा समृद्धि को आगे बढ़ाएगा, इनोवेशन को गति देगा, सुरक्षा सहयोग और सुदृढ़ करेगा और पीपल टू पीपल टाइज को और गहरा करेगा। फ्रेंड, भारत और यूरोपियन यूनियन का सहयोग एक पार्टनरशिप फॉर ग्लोबल गुड है। हम इंडो पैसिफिक से लेकर कैरेबियन तक ट्राइलेटरल प्रोजेक्ट को विस्तार देंगे। इससे सस्टेनेबल एग्रीकल्चर, क्लीन एनर्जी और विमेन एम्पावरमेंट को ठोस समर्थन मिलेगा। हम साथ मिलकर आईमैक कॉरिडोर को ग्लोबल ट्रेड और सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट की एक प्रमुख कड़ी के रूप में स्थापित करेंगे। फ्रेंड्स, आज ग्लोबल ऑर्डर में बड़ी उथल-पुथल है। ऐसे में भारत और यूरोपियन यूनियन की साझेदारी अंतर्राष्ट्रीय सिस्टम में स्थिरता को मजबूती देगी।
Prime Minister Modi, dear friend, 1 year ago, the full College of Commissioners came to India. You mentioned it. And this is also a very special memory for me. It showed the seriousness of our intent and the strength of our commitment. Today, we reap the fruits of that commitment with our historic summit. And let me start with trade. Prime Minister, distinguished friend, we did it. We delivered the mother of all deals. We are creating a market of 2 billion people. And this is the tale of two giants, the world's second and fourth largest economies. Two giants who choose partnership in a true win-win fashion. Not only making our economy stronger, we are also delivering security for our people in an increasingly insecure world. And today, the world's two largest economies and democracies launch their first ever security and defense partnership. This is a landmark departure and a trust-based platform for cooperation on the strategic issues that matter most. In doing so, we will help to build each other's resilience. Europe and India have a long history of cooperation in the defense industry. Now we will enhance this teamwork even further. We will deepen our cooperation on maritime security, for example, joint naval exercises to tackle piracy. And we will step up our work on countering cyber and hybrid threats, which are getting more sophisticated by the day. And our partnership includes a dedicated dialogue on space security, from situational awareness to secure connectivity, and stronger cooperation on counterterrorism. It brings together Indian skills, services, and scale with Europe's technology, capital, and innovation. It will create levels of growth that neither side can achieve alone. And by combining these strengths, we reduce strategic dependencies at a time when trade is increasingly weaponized. We will discuss this and more at our first EU-India Business Forum later today.
It's a historic moment. We are opening a new chapter in our relations on trade, on security, on people-to-people ties. Also because we conclude today our trade negotiations. We relaunched at the latest meeting that I had the pleasure to host in May 2021 in my previous capacity. Our summit sends a clear message to the world. At a time when the global order is being fundamentally reshaped, the European Union and India stand together as a strategic and reliable partners. Today, we are taking our partnership to the next level. As the two largest democracies in the world, we are working hand in hand to deliver concrete benefits for our citizens and to shape a resilient global order that underpins peace and stability, economic growth, and sustainable development. I would like to share three messages. First, the European Union and India must work together towards our shared prosperity and security. India is the world's fastest growing major economy. Trade has flowed between our two continents for centuries. And trade is crucial geopolitical stabilizer and the fundamental source of economic growth. Trade agreements reinforce rules-based economic order and promote shared prosperity. That's why today's free trade agreement is of historic importance. One of the most ambitious agreements ever concluded, creating a market of 2 billion people. In a multipolar world, the European Union and India are working together to grow spheres of shared prosperity. But prosperity does not exist without security. Strengthen our cooperation to better protect our citizens and our shared interests. Working together to counter the full range of security threats we face in the Indo-Pacific, in Europe, and around the world, reaching a new level of strategic trust between us. That is the significance of our agreement on a security and defense partnership. The first such overarching defense and security framework between India and the European Union, and the first step towards even more ambitious cooperation in the future.
India and the European Union have also signed a landmark security and defence partnership. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh and European Commission Vice President Kaja Kallas sealed the deal earlier today. The partnership will allow India to plug into select European defence initiatives. This comes at a time when Europe is looking to reduce its dependence on the United States and China while widening diplomatic and economic engagement with other regions. The agreement states, and I quote, "The EU and India will consult on their respective defence initiatives, including through exchanges on defence industry-related matters. They will explore where there are mutual interests and alignment of security priorities for possibilities for India's participation in relevant EU defence initiatives in line with respective legal frameworks." A statement by India's Ministry of Defence says the partnership will become a force multiplier by integrating supply chains for building trusted defence ecosystems and future-ready capabilities. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh said India's defence industry can play a meaningful role in the EU's rearm initiative, especially when the European Union is seeking to rapidly diversify suppliers and de-risk dependencies. Among other things, the partnership envisages an annual EU-India dialogue on security and defence. It also flags deeper cooperation on maritime security, cyber issues and counter-terrorism. The document further states, the growing complexity of global security threats, rising geopolitical tensions and rapid technological change underscore the need for closer EU-India dialogue and cooperation in security and defence. European Commission Vice President Kaja Kallas said both sides must work together in the Indian Ocean region and learn from each other's best practices through joint exercises. The statement assumes significance as India has been part of broader efforts to counter China's growing assertiveness in the Indo-Pacific region. India and the European Union are also looking at closer defence industrial coordination, including supply chains, as part of building more resilient ecosystems. The India-EU security and defence partnership could be a game changer, opening doors for Indian companies to participate in the EU's massive €150 billion safe defence programme and strengthening readiness on both sides. Even as New Delhi and Brussels hold differing views on issues like the Ukraine war, both see strategic autonomy, stability and a rules-based global order as common ground. The message is unmistakable. At a critical moment in global geopolitics, India and Europe are not just trading partners, they are aligning strategically as well.
Thank you for your visit to India. And your visit is very special and it comes from the occasion of our 77th Republic Day. The occasion marks a moment in celebration of India's constitutional journey and the reaffirmation of our commitment to global peace and security. Secretary, the shared principles of democracy, multilateralism, and the rule of law support India's growing partnership with the European Union. Together, we see to translate these shared values into practical cooperation for global security, trust-level growth, and inclusive prosperity. Secondly, the signing of the security and the defense partnership between India and the European Union is a reflection of established trust in action, and it brings us together in an increasingly complex global environment. I hope the increased momentum of India's the EU partnership in economic, defense and people-to-people connect will bring the two ancient civilizations much closer. Now I request you for opening.
Thank you very much for welcoming us and really yesterday participating at the Republic Day was quite an experience. So thank you for that as well, Your Excellency. I mean, it was so great to see, and I was so proud to see that also, our operations were part of this parade, and I think, it shows how we have been able to work together. Like you say, the signing of the Security and Defense Partnership is really a milestone, and we can build on that. There is so much more, like you said, Your Excellency, that we can work together on the multilateral fora, but also bilaterally to develop the defense cooperation further. So I really look forward to our discussions today and further cooperation in the future.
First of all, we will discuss from the Indian Ocean region and the regional security stand.
Yes.
Definitely, thank you for your kind words. India stands for a free, open, prosperous and developing of Indo-Pacific. And we support the freedom of navigation and the
As India and the European Union deepen their economic and strategic ties by sealing what has been dubbed as the mother of all trade deals, is the United States rattled? Well, the Trump administration is clearly not amused. US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has claimed that Europe is financing a war against itself by signing the free trade agreement with India. Bessent said Europe may have significantly phased out direct energy ties with Moscow, but they are indirectly funding the Russia-Ukraine war by purchasing Russian oil products refined in India. Claiming that the US has made much bigger sacrifices than its allies, the Europeans, Bessent argued that while Washington has pushed to destabilize Moscow's energy trade, Europe continues to benefit economically from loopholes in the global oil trade. Remember, the Trump administration has imposed 50% tariffs on India, including a 25% punitive levy for New Delhi's purchases of Russian oil.
The U.S. has made much bigger sacrifices than the Europeans have. We have put 25% tariffs on India for buying Russian oil. Guess what happened last week? The Europeans signed a trade deal with India. The Russian oil goes into India, the refined products come out, and the Europeans buy the refined products. They are financing the war against themselves. So President Trump's leadership, we will eventually end this Ukraine-Russia war.
NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte has told Europe it should keep on dreaming if it thinks it can defend itself without the support of the United States. During an address to the European Parliament in Brussels, Rutte said, "If anyone thinks that the European Union or Europe as a whole can defend itself without the US, keep on dreaming. You can't. We can't. We need each other." The NATO chief warned European nations that they would need to increase defense spending to 10% if they really want to do it alone, adding they would need to build up their own nuclear capability, costing billions of euros. He said, in that scenario, you will lose the ultimate guarantor of our freedom, which is the US nuclear umbrella. So hey, good luck. The NATO chief's comments come after a rollercoaster week following President Donald Trump's continued advances and his demands for the US ownership of Greenland before publicly ruling out the use of force to annex the Arctic island. On the issue of Greenland, the NATO chief said, "I think he is right. There is an issue with the Arctic region. There is an issue of collective security because these sea lanes are opening up and because the Chinese and the Russians are more and more active." Rutte said there is a need for NATO to take more collective responsibility for the defense of the Arctic to prevent Russia and China's access to the region, both militarily and economically, and at the same time continuation of trilateral discussions between the US, Denmark and Greenland. Trump and Rutte recently met in Davos with the US president, claiming he had reached a framework for a Greenland deal with the NATO chief. It's not yet clear what's included in that framework.
In the meantime, as these discussions to secure when President Trump is doing good stuff, I will praise him. And I don't mind him publishing text messages. And if anyone thinks here, again, that the European Union or Europe as a whole can defend itself without the US, keep on dreaming. You can't. We can't. We need each other. Not totally, because one or two I found too difficult. But for Europe, if you really want to go it alone, and those of you who are pleading for that, forget that you can ever get there with 5%. It will be 10%. You have to build up your own nuclear capability. That costs billions and billions of euros. You will lose then, in that scenario, you would lose the ultimate guarantor of our freedom, which is the US nuclear umbrella. Good luck.
Chaos erupted inside the Karnataka Assembly today as the BJP accused the ruling Congress of involvement in an alleged 6,000 crore rupee excise scam, triggering noisy protests and sharp political exchanges. BJP and JDS legislators stormed the Assembly campus with placards and slogans demanding a CBI probe or a judicial inquiry by a sitting High Court judge. State BJP Chief B.Y. Vijendra claimed that evidence had emerged against the excise minister and his family. The BJP leader accused Chief Minister Siddaramaiah of deliberately blocking discussion in the House and staging drama to cover up the scandal. The protest was withdrawn only after the Speaker assured that time would be allotted for a debate on the issue. The confrontation followed an already tense standoff between the Congress government and Governor Thawarchand Gehlot. Last week's dramatic walkout by the governor after refusing to read parts of the government-drafted speech sparked a constitutional flashpoint, with Siddaramaiah accusing the governor of acting as a puppet of the centre. The row was over paragraphs critical of the centre's G Ramji job scheme, which the governor wanted removed, but the state government refused to delete. The University Grants Commission is in the eye of a storm. The statutory body's new guidelines to prevent caste-based discrimination in colleges and universities have triggered an uproar among general category or upper caste communities who claim the new rules are exclusionary. A petition has been filed in the Supreme Court challenging these regulations, and nationwide protests have erupted. The new rules define caste-based discrimination as discrimination only on the basis of caste or tribe against members of the scheduled castes, scheduled tribes and other backward classes. Under the new regulations, every higher education institution has to establish equal opportunity centers to support disadvantaged groups, offer academic and social counseling, and promote campus diversity. Equity squads will be responsible for monitoring vulnerable spaces on campus. Equity ambassadors will act as nodal points in hostels, departments and libraries. The body has placed the onus on institutional heads, including vice-chancellors and principals, for the implementation of the latest rules. They are required to ensure compliance and submit reports to the UGC. Institutions that fail to comply with the guidelines could face penalties. The UGC says caste-based discrimination on campuses has surged in recent years. Critics of the new rules say these regulations are not inclusive, as the definition excludes students from the general category. They also say that the new rules do not safeguard upper caste students from false complaints and would lead to a presumption of guilt against them. The regulations have triggered a nationwide backlash, spilling from courtrooms to campuses. Students and teachers in several states have raised alarm, with protests erupting outside the UGC headquarters in Delhi.
हमारे 6 राज्यों के विभिन्न सवर्ण संगठन, विभिन्न ब्राह्मण सभाएं सब संपर्क में हैं। बहुत सारे लोग हैं, यहाँ जनप्रतिनिधि हैं, उन्होंने सहानुभूति दर्ज की है कि जो यूजीसी रेगुलेशन जो आ रहा है, जो 2026 का 13 जनवरी को जो भारत सरकार के गजट पे आया है, वो बहुत देश को खत्म कर देगा। इसी के अलावा जो सनातन संस्कृति का जो चोटी और शिखा चीज का जो बटुक ब्राह्मणों का जो अपमान किया गया माघ मेले प्रयागराज में, उसके लिए भी सभी जो संगठन है, सभी ने समर्थन दिया है और सभी लोग हम लोग एक है और आगे समाज मिलकर आगे की रणनीति
पूरे में समर्थन मिल रहा है आपको और तमाम जगह से
नहीं। इस समय देखिए सरकार अल्पमत में आ गई है। इस समय सरकार में संवैधानिक मशीनरी विफल हो चुकी है। सरकार एक विशेष विचारधारा के साथ काम कर रही है और विरोधी विचारधारा है। मैं भारत के माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी, भारत के गृह मंत्री जी हैं अमित शाह जी और भारत के माननीय राष्ट्रपति महोदया, उनसे संयुक्त रूप से आग्रह करूंगा कि जो यहाँ पे जो गवर्नर मैम है उत्तर प्रदेश, उनसे तुरंत रिपोर्ट लेके यहाँ पे राष्ट्रपति शासन लगाएं और यहाँ की जो मशीनरी संवैधानिक तंत्र विफल हो चुका है उसको तुरंत जो है उसका बहाल करें।
That's all the time we have on this edition of Headlines at 8. Thanks for watching. Do join us again at the same time tomorrow. Bye for now.